Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar hosted by the Workforce Education and Development Program at Penn State. This is a monthly webinar series presented during our lunch hour. My name is Marcia Ruimel, and I'm a PhD student in the Workforce Education and Development Program at the Pennsylvania State University. I will be moderating today's webinar along with my colleagues Halima Hatta, who is also a PhD student in the same program as I am in, and Adia Waterton, a marketing specialist at the Pennsylvania State University. For the interactive format of this webinar, please use Zoom chat feature. If you have any questions about the presentation, please use the chat feature on Zoom. You can see the chat button on the bottom of the screen. The Q&A session will be at the end of the presentation. However, you can submit your questions anytime during the presentation. We are offering an online Masters of Professional Study program. The Masters of Professional Studies is designed for professionals who need the skills and acknowledge the lead change in their organization. Furthermore, there are a master's and PhD program in the Workforce Education and Development department with concentrations in human resources and organization development. Our program has created a continuous free monthly webinar series feature experts from around the world. For this webinar, we have two presenters. Dr. Eileen, Vice President and Senior Partner of Rodwell Associates, is an alumnus of our Workforce Education and Development Program. Dr. Eileen is a certified professional in talent development and has over 2 decades of experience in that field. Dr. Farhan is our second speaker for today, is also an alumnus of our Workforce Education and Development Program. He is an associate professor of higher education and leadership at the Kansas State University and a chief of research at Rodwell and Associates organization. He brings 5 years of experience in sales and sales training with experience in organization development, talent development, and customer-centered services. For more information about those two speakers, Dr. Eileen Saballero and Dr. Farhan Sadiq, please visit today's webinar's page on Eventbrite. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our speakers for today, Dr. Eileen and Dr. Farhan. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you for the wonderful start of this presentation and everyone who is organizing such a great event. I'm very happy and it feels great to be back at Penn State. I'm an assistant professor in Kansas State University, and I always love to present with Dr. Zaballero, such a excellent person with a lot of knowledge to share. So it's a really fun discussion every time we come together and bring something new for you and bring something for us as well. On the chat box, I see the audiences are from everywhere. It feels home when I see the State College and when I see people are from Pennsylvania, but I see from all the other places as well, and that's exciting. Thank you for joining today in this afternoon or pretty close to noon in some places. As we are international, working from different areas, it's hard to say where we are from and what time it is, but welcome. So a little introduction about us. We continuously doing different work, different consulting services, as well as our professional service as a Rothwell Associates. Dr. Eileen teaches in Penn State. I'm teaching in Kansas State University, and also being involved in different activities around training and development. So today we are going to talk about the experiential learning. We're going to give you a brief introduction and the skill gap and future of work, why experiential learning is important, why at this time of the month or time of the year we're talking about it. And then we're going to talk about the sandbox model. It's a very interesting model where we implemented what we learned from experiential learning into our everyday teaching, training, and however we can bring that into life. And finally, some student experience, as we are all about students trying to implement and innovate the idea of teaching and learning. Student experience is fundamentally important for us, and hopefully that will give you some ideas how it is being received throughout the different places where we implemented this idea, tried this same workshop, focused on the simulation, focused on the experiential learning. As we are doing it for years, it's about 3 years. We are currently working on this project, continuously developing, bringing new ideas and trying new ideas. And now, currently with AI, I'll give you a brief overview of how AI is going to make a shift in how we can use AI in this same state of learning or the same pattern of learning that we are implementing. First, let me start with the question. How do you currently prefer to learn new skill? It can be from the classroom, it can be from your organization. How you prefer to learn? Watching a video, reading, practicing hands-on, learning from others, trial and error, or maybe in different other way that not even on the list. Let's see. I'd love to see some responses. Hands-on, yes. Great. I totally agree on that. C and D kind of depends on the skill, the context as well. Learning from others. Oh, watching video and then practice. Oh, excellent. And all of the above. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Wow, a lot of responses and watching videos. I do that too. I find myself watching videos of random things and learning new things. I'll never know or when I'm going to use those learnings, but yeah, it's fun to watch videos and learn as well. CDE, okay. We do have a lot of learners, different ways they prefer to learn. That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for your input. Now we are going to talk about the changing nature of work, why skill building matters more than ever. Because we want to set the stage. We want to see if we are all aligned with our intention and we want to learn in different ways, but how it's moving forward. We see a rapid tech shift, AI, automation, and new tools every year. When we say video, there is new tools. There is sometimes just scrolling on the videos. We get to learn, and there's different micro learning tools available. And now LinkedIn learning is a big thing. It's kind of helping us to learn new skills every time. And then AI getting a spontaneous answer right there. Yesterday, I was trying to fix some wiring on a switchboard. I was like, which wire should I connect? I'm pretty sure I don't want to connect positive with negative right there. And AI was there. I'm like, I know what to do. Just follow the instruction. Put the red wire here, the black wire there. I'm like, I don't know if I should trust you. But that is good to have some support when I'm trying something and trying to learn out, preferably the best thing to learn by practicing, but doing better. It's better just to hire an electrician, but it is fun just to learn and then how AI is helping just looking at the pictures. That is an exciting opportunity. I can do more works that way and I can learn new things every day. And when I can share the pictures, what I'm doing, AI can help me to give me the right instruction. And if I'm doing anything wrong, it can help me to understand what I'm doing wrong. Roles are blending technical and human skills. The example I just shared, yes, from yesterday, but also at the workplace. The collaboration and the emotional intelligence, where human factor comes in. AI can't replace all the human actions, and we will always need human and using AI as a support system. And the collaboration is becoming more clear. And also what AI can do, what technology can do, and what a person can do. It's still we're exploring on that, and it's also evolving as we move forward. Static job description are giving way to fluid skill portfolios, and organization need people who can learn, unlearn, and relearn quickly. At this point, every jobs, every task is shifting. It's getting into a new form. Sometimes AI is doing a lot of tasks for us, and we have to learn new way of doing things. For example, just about the research and just about the articles, chapters we're writing, there is a lot of support that we are getting, and we are getting answers, we are getting feedback. Sometimes it's fun just to talk with someone about our new ideas and see how they come back with the response. So all this kind of things is new, we are learning as we're moving forward, and also giving us more ideas and have more opportunity to explore what else we can do in the field. So it requires continuous learning, that's for sure. 39% of the key job skills are going to change by 2030. There is a lot of surveys, research going on by Kirtner, by Economic Forum, and also McKinsey has have a lot of reports that's going around. But 39% of the job skills will change. About 30% has changed in the last 3 years. So it will be a continuous learning process. What else is going to change and what else we can do to use AI as a support system. Organization are investing continuous upskilling and reskilling process. If your organization is not investing and preparing you for the future, there will be some challenges. But most of the organization, as we have talked with them, we are working with our learners. They're continuously learning, and just looking into the options that you have selected, there are different ways that you know that you're learning, and also you like to learn. And we all have our own preferences. Some people like to learn by doing. Some people like to watch, learn, and then apply. So it kind of different ways, but the pattern would be somewhat similar. Organizations are investing continuous upskilling, and companies are shifting toward real-time embedded upskilling, and internal development outperforms hiring to close the skill gaps. We had a lot of information research is how to kind of prove the point of internal development, how it's effective, how the turnover costs a lot for the organization. At the same time, hiring from outside is expensive. So building the skills internally, creating this internal system, succession planning, or different ways of skill development to make sure that we have the talent that we need inside the organization. That way, we don't have to train someone new, bringing into the organization, and that saves a lot of money for the organization in the long run. Again, want to hear your feedback because it's sometimes really uh, it's difficult to talk and also listen for a long time. I never liked watching a 1 hour session because at some point I'm like, I can't connect anymore. But I want to give you an opportunity and me an opportunity to see how you feel and just wake up and answer these questions. How do you mostly learn at work today? So when you think about the work, are you going for the formal training like courses, webinar, or learning management system, or on the job trial and error? Or maybe coaching and mentoring, or simulation and role-based and game-based training system, or kind of like sink or swim situation. Thank you, Carolina. Thank you, everybody, for answering B and E on the job trial and error. Yes, I will talk a little bit more about it. And so, yeah, E is more common than anything else. Okay. Coaching and mentoring. Yes, it's a big piece. Yeah, at some point, yes, we can relate all these strategies. We are doing all this in the workplace, also in our preferred learning system. We have a coach, mentor. Some cases we are using on the job trial and error. And if you think about the apprenticeship industry, the way they are growing, even there is a huge investment to focus on the apprentices, how we can create or get our workforce ready through the on-the-job training and less classroom training, how we can do that. And that's kind of a focus as well. And that's also more effective in some cases where there is practical learning involved. So yeah, on the job trial and error, all those kind of things are becoming crucial, and people have preferences, and that's how most of the people are learning in different ways. But depending on the skills again, which you have mentioned, it kind of depends on what you're learning, what's the context, and in different situation, you might have different preferences. So learning, experiential learning, that's where I'm going to focus today, is talking about the experiential learning, going to the basic, how learning happens. According to Kolb, learning is the process where knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. As I'm teaching adult learning and currently doing a lot of research around how adults like to learn, we see that the learning happens when we have some experience and we can relate to that. That's why in the classroom sessions, we always talk about having discussion board. We talk about sharing your own experience, relate to your own experience, because even in this session, we asked you to relate with your experience, because as an adult, we do bring expertise in this room. However many people we have right now, we all have some expertise that we can offer. We have some experience that we can relate. And when our experience and our learning can go together and we can reflect from our experience to learn, that's where learning happens. And that's where we can learn the best in most of the time. So, according to the Kolb's theory or experiential learning theory, we learn from feeling, watching, thinking, and doing. So, from feeling, let's start from the reflective observation. When we experience something and reflect on that, that's when learning happens. And abstract conceptualization and thinking, when we provide a lot of concept and ask people to think without relating that to their experience, that's where we see the learning is not as effective. And then doing an active experimentation, like I've mentioned, there are some different cases where active experimentation is possible. Some cases it's not possible, but co- having a combination of all those going together creates the best learning experience for the adult learners. So, how do we do that and how we can bring that theory into practice? And that's where we are in. It's like, how do we do that? And during the last few years, after the COVID happened and we started doing a lot of online courses, how can we bring the experience piece into the online courses? Let's think about a situation. We'll share more case studies in a little bit. We work with the adult learners. We work with the consultant who is going to go to the field and start doing their practices. And they learn about all those theories. They learn about organization development. They learn about process consultation. But knowing those theories and applying those theories and going into the field and start working is two different scenarios. It requires two different skills. So when we only focus on giving the abstract conceptualization or giving the focusing on the thinking part without really experimenting anything or experiencing the moment, the learning is not as effective at the workplace as it can be if we add some experience to it. And that's where we bring the new idea of conceptualization using simulation process and role play simulation. That's what we are going to talk today. Because content and understanding all the contents can is not the same as transferring those content into the capability or developing skills. Most programs are optimizing slides, reading, lectures. Like right now, we're looking into the lectures. Knowing this is good. It's great. You get to know and think about it, but knowing and also relating that to your experience, that's where the adult feels most comfortable learning. Performance in the wild requires doing under pressure with other humans in the messy context. I was a Penn State student even 1.5 year back, and within 3 months, I found myself in front of the classroom. I know my theories, but how do I perform? Or even in 5 months, I found myself standing in front of the clients, trying to explain how to train and develop, how to perform their job. I know all my theories from training and development, but how do I actually do that? And there's so many challenges that you face as you're standing in the practicing field. If we can get our students ready for those moments, giving some experience ahead of time, think about how they can perform when they're in the field, how they can perform if they know what question to ask when they're standing in front of the client, and also how to answer those questions from that's coming from the client, and what are the key things and how they can face those challenges. So that's where Dr. Eileen Zaballero is going to come in and talk about the sandbox concept. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sadiq. As you can see, he's very passionate and pretty excited about all of this. When I really think about the whole idea of learning, it's easy to learn and read concepts, but to be able to bridge those concepts to actual application is what we're going to talk about today. What was interesting when I was listening and looking at some of the poll questions, almost no one listed doing formal training as a way to learn, which makes sense. And no one actually put reading as a way to learn, which is a little concerning because I don't think a lot of people read anymore. But I think one of the most things that's really important for us to consider, we're providing you some tools and aspects to think about in regards to how do we get more people engaged in the things that we want them to learn about. Dr. Sadiq was talking about Dr. Kolb and how he reminds us that learning from experience isn't just about exposing someone to something, isn't just about sharing a theory or an idea. It's about actively taking part in the process and trying to figure it out. This is very different from the rote learning where a lot of times traditional education is really based on, which is simply memorizing facts. Memorization might help you remember information for a short period of time, but that doesn't really get to real understanding. Experiential learning, which is really the crux of what we've been talking about, is the hands-on. It's about solving problems, talking with others. It's being active and applying an idea. It's the bridge between the theory and the application. A subset of experiential learning is problem-based. So giving students, participants a problem for them to sort out and figure out. It's going through a real world scenario so that when they actually have this real experience in the real world, they know what to expect. And these will be used through case studies, role play, and simulations. A subset of that is also then game-based components, where you're incorporating scores, points, rewards, different levels of achievement. We haven't actually incorporated that yet, but it's one of the goals that we're looking into. But our focus has really been more on the problem-based, the case studies, role plays, and simulation. And so just to give you a little bit of an idea, if you see here on the left, there are 3 different books here. For the past few years, I would say almost 5 years now, it's been going on 5. Dr. Rothwell has been leading myself and Dr. Sadiq in these projects. And we've been exploring different ways we can create experiential learning. Now, right now with technology, everyone's going with simulations. And simulations from a technology perspective can be really expensive. So we were exploring what are other ways we can do this, create a simulation from a low budgeted perspective. So we published a few books. One of them, which is what we used in our fundamental course, Experiencing OD, and the other one is on process consultation and succession planning. But they all follow the same premise in regards to this whole sandbox concept, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. So think about the ideas of the sandbox. It's really helpful when we are able to talk about experiential from that perspective, because think about it like when you were a kid and you used to play in the sandbox. You could build, you could test, you could even destroy something and then rebuild it again without any real consequences, unless the sandbox is not very clean. But the whole idea is that this is a place for you to try different things out. It's a way to explore ideas, to test skills, and even make mistakes in a very low pressure environment. The sandbox is where you learn by doing. This is a concept that Dr. Kolb was, or Dr. Sadiq was talking about when he was citing Kolb. It's the whole idea of trial through error, which you can see whether or not something works, doesn't work, or why, and you're actually getting immediate feedback from the people around you when you're actually participating in this. Your role as the learner is key here. The sandbox only works when you actively engage, you experiment, and then you also reflect on what you are trying to do. It's the curiosity and the participation that makes learning become alive. But for the sandbox to actually work, you need 2 things. One, if you see here on the top, is the context. The context is what we're setting. We set the context by giving people a clear picture of what a scenario is about. You're answering questions like, what is the situation that they're pretending to be in? Who are the people involved? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? A good context helps you step into the situation and treat it like it's real. And then you establishing the boundaries. The boundaries define what's allowed, what's the limits, what resources do you have, how much time do you have, what is the goal, and also what does success looks like. Now, the nice thing about the sandbox is that both the context and the boundaries itself is dynamic, and it's evolving and moving and changing based on the people who are in the simulation itself. Next slide, please. We'll talk about the whole idea of what that actually looks like. So let's first break down the case stories. The case story is where the participants are given a situation that feels like something that they might really face in the real world. This is a problem in your job that they have to figure out. And you review the details, ask the questions, and you think critically about the possible solutions. The main thing about the case story is that it helps them build into what is the context, what are the boundaries, and have a better understanding of what's happening. And this, they have a discussion afterwards to make sure that everybody's in alignment. Sometimes the story is based on real events. I mean, we have been using our case stories based on actual consulting businesses and events that have actually happened. We've changed and modified certain things, of course, protect the names of the individuals who are involved, but we try to create real scenarios that people might actually experience. The big thing about these case stories is that there's no real right answer. So we really try to encourage them to think deeply and to also share different viewpoints and how to approach the problem. As they work through a case, you typically discuss the facts. What is the facts? What do I see here in this case? They decide what concepts they want to apply, and then they list possible causes, solutions, and then choose different options. The fictional company that we actually used for our Experiencing OD book was a company called Poppy Candy. This was actually based on a real consulting event that happened with one of our other authors. And it was based on a family-owned business who was producing and creating candies, and they had a specific structure in regards to the organization by generation. And so we used this scenario and this story for the book that we're writing and also for the simulations. Each of the scenes that the participants go through during the semester have them go through different concepts, and they get to apply these things. Apply things from Lewin's action research model or Cooper Ryder's appreciative inquiry. And so the idea is that you're not just reading about appreciative inquiry, you actually get to try it out and see how it works, and also try to figure out what doesn't work as well. On the next slide, you'll see that we'll talk about how we combine both the case story and the role play together. This is what makes the simulation. Combining these things really helps people situate themselves in this simulated environment. First, the case story, as I was stating earlier, gets everybody who's in part of the simulation on board and having them situate what they're all thinking about. And then the role play is about practicing and experiencing it. One of the things when we were going through this is that we were trying, as the facilitators of this simulation, we tried different ways of engaging with them. And earlier on, when we were facilitating these, we were giving them the roles on the spot. And one of the things we did find is that the participants really wanted more time to prep and prepare, which was great because that means they're really engaging in the role play. So we kind of changed it a little bit, and we started assigning roles so that people can really do their background research, explore a little bit more about what the characteristics that they're trying to display and talk about. And they actually come in really engaged in regards to playing these roles. In the next slide, you'll see how we actually structured the whole setting. So we were really fortunate because when we structured this, we've been doing this, oh my gosh, again, 4 years. That's three times every semester, sometimes 4. And that's in 3 semesters. We've done at least 40, 50 different simulations. We've also even done it live for an ATD conference. And we've had really great reviews, but the structure has been pretty much the same. So the first part of the structure is we introduce a concept. What is the main focus of the learning that we're talking about? That concept might be the action research model's entry step. The entry is, like in any consulting business, is where you start to meet with a client for the first time and you're trying to win that contract. So in that entry step, there are different skills that you have to develop to be able to do that. And there are different things that you actually have to know. You have to know about how to write a proposal. You have to know how to engage with a client. You have to know how to probe and ask more questions. You also have to know how to feed back and tell them what it is that you understand. So then when you write the proposal, it does reflect what they're thinking. So we introduced this key concept, and then in the key concept, we were really fortunate because Dr. Rothwell has been generous with his time, and he has been the one who's been doing these overviews. Our simulations that we've done over the past few years have been only 90 minutes. And so the first 20, 30 minutes, we introduce a concept, and then the next 20 or 30 minutes, they do a case. The case story, again, as I was talking about earlier, is to get them situated. And then the next 20, 30 minutes is the actual role play. And in the role play, participants they dive right in. I don't think we've actually had a simulation where people were not engaged in it. I mean, I've been really surprised and excited about how almost every single person who's participated in our simulations, over 40 or 50 in the past few years, have dove right in. It's like that sink or swim situation. And sometimes they get a little embarrassed by, saying the wrong thing that they think. And other times they get to reflect on it and go, oh, well, at least I got to do it here in the simulation than with the client. And that's the really big part of it, is that they actually try these things. I think the big part to also consider, it's kind of like riding a bike. So imagine that you're trying to learn how to ride a bike. You can get a book, you can even watch a video, and it'll tell you about balance and how to pedal your feet. But the only way you could actually learn how to ride a bike is to get on the bike. And that's the whole idea of these simulations. The other part that becomes really important is the whole idea of the debrief. The debrief is really key because this is where a lot of that social learning, and people are talking about the collaboration and learning from each other, is really becoming instrumental. Learning what somebody else's perspective and getting feedback from them about how they perceived what they did or didn't do, and even sharing what they would have done if they were in that case. So this is pretty much the main premise of what we've used over the past few years. But I wanted to go over in regards to how the learner really becomes an important part. So in the next slide, you can see that the learner's role is key to the whole simulation. It's more important than any assigned or role that they pretend to be. It's the learner's role, coming in it as an active participant and an active learner. Being an active participant, and even those who are less active, who are not necessarily playing the roles, still contributes to the whole environment. And it's an important piece to consider. When they're proactive, they're asking questions, they're seeking clarification, they're responding thoughtfully, they're encouraging each other in regards to how to engage. And then there's also the other roles, which is the reflective learner. So the reflective learner is now thinking deeply about the experience itself when they do the debrief, or when they're doing the case story and they're thinking about, well, what is actually happening? They pause and they consider, what is the scenario and how do I apply some of these key concepts? The collaborative learner, which is something that's was really common in the poll question of how people like to learn, is with each other. The social component of learning is so important. And this is where we get to share ideas and learn from different perspectives. A lot of the learning in the simulation isn't just you applying what you're doing, is watching and experiencing and learning from other people in regards to what they do. And then you have the other pieces of the learning part of it, where you're the problem solver, you're the innovative learner, you're the supportive learner. But the most important part of this is being the self-directed learner. Because here, as instructors and facilitators, professors, we're not dictating what's happening. We're guiding everyone in regards to this environment, and they're actually taking ownership of the learning. And I think that's what gets more exciting for us and also exciting for them, because they're actually choosing what they need to focus on. they get to choose what skill that they want to practice. And that's the part that is really key when it comes to being a self-directed learner. On the next slide, we'll share with you some of the skills that people have been building on. I mean, they've been building on all these different things, which is really neat. Things from leadership agility, where they're trying different leadership approaches, leadership from how they engage with the people they're working with, leadership in regards to how they deliver what they think leadership means for the client, and so how these different styles actually change in the situation. They also learn how to respond when things don't go as planned. And, you can have a planned approach to something, and then somebody responds and reacts completely different. And how you respond to that requires a lot of flexibility, and even being able to be in uncertain moment, because we don't know what that person's interpretation or response is going to be like. It also builds the critical thinking and decision-making skills. As they work through the cases in the simulation, they analyze the information, they weigh in options, and they make these choices, often with incomplete data. And that's really kind of like what life is all about. And this is what it's like actually to work with certain consultants sometimes, and working with some clients. The communication aspect is also a really big strength that they get to build and develop, because how they're communicating with each other about their understanding of the case, how they communicate in regards to how they deliver their ideas to each other, becomes a really key piece. So let me share with you a specific piece that we were talking about in regards to the skills. So on the next slide, we'll show you this token. And so I created this token, this whole idea of the token, if it's familiar to you, if you ever played Trivial Pursuit. So in Trivial Pursuit, you get this empty kind of casement that's the same shape as this, and then there are these pie pieces. And the concept and idea that we had, so you can incorporate actually a game-based component, is that as participants go through these simulations, and ideally, which we haven't been able to do yet, ideally, it would be the entire semester that the students would go through this whole OD simulation. But as they develop these different skill sets, like being able to demonstrate that they understand the fundamentals of OD, or that they know how to ask probing questions, or that they're listening actively, they would get these pie pieces. And the whole idea is that to say that you are a skilled in the entry step, you would have all these pie pieces. And so this is where we're focusing. Again, the whole idea is really focusing on actual skills, things that you're doing, not just concepts or theories. It's the application of it that becomes really critical and most important. And so in the next slide, you'll see how it was actually structured and set up. That, as I said, it was a 90-minute simulation. Dr. Rothwell would introduce the key concepts. So in this case, it was the entry step for the action research model for when somebody's coming in working with a client. They would have a case story that they would discuss for 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, depending on how much time. And then they would do the role play. That was pretty much the structure. What they would get is they would also get a video, which they would orient them in regards to what's happening. They would get this one pager about the character that they might be playing. So if somebody was playing the role of Anton, they would get this kind of overview about who this character is. Kind of think about it from when you're playing the whodunit kind of board games. You get those little cards. That's the whole premise of it. You get these cards. And so then they go in, and I think part of this whole sandbox concept is that we really want to encourage them to play. The idea of play is that you don't think about what's right or wrong, you do, and you go in and you try things and you see what works and what doesn't work. And the biggest part that we also tell them is that here are the guidelines that we're giving you. This is the company, here's the scenario, here's the situation, here's the case. But more than anything, you get to interpret what you think these characters are going through. You get to interpret if you were the OD consultant, how would you approach this problem? And so I wanted to share with you some of the feedback that we've gotten from students in the past. But I was looking at who's here, and we actually have a few students who've actually participated in this in the past. So if any of you who are here who would like to share what your experience was, please feel free to share it in the chat bot regards to what your experience of doing these OD simulations. But I'll tell you, one of the most consistent feedback that we've gotten was they wanted more time. We do these simulations because it's still extra credit. It's not actually part of the curriculum. And one of our goals is to make it more central to the curriculum of the course. But they wanted more time, and our simulations are only 90 minutes. And so they wanted more time to be able to do this. If we had it as part of the course, it would be like an entire session that they would be doing a simulation or a role play for maybe an entire hour, where it would actually really represent exactly what it really feels like when they're meeting with a client. They also had things like our whole group was in. It was a fun, participants could organically develop stories, play off of each other. They said things like, loved the engagement. It was invaluable, and it was such a safe space to practice. You can make mistakes, but not be judged for them. And the big part, and I always thought this was great, is that people always said it was fun. So, I think the part of the sandbox concept, more than anything, at least for me, is that we want to really bring joy and fun to learning. Because when we think about learning, if it's not something you're enjoying, it's going to make it really hard to acquire the knowledge and the information and the skills to be able to do that. But if we can create learning environment, a learning space, to be enjoyed like we were kids to play, we would acquire so much more in the things that we're trying to learn more about. And so I am going to pass it back to Dr. Sadiq, who's going to talk about different ways that you can implement the sandbox, such as how you could do it in your organization. So Dr. Sadiq, you want to talk about those things?
Yes, Dr. Zabalera, before we go there, I do have some really good comments in the comment box that we
Okay.
want to address. So I'll let you respond to the first one. Did you test out the order of the experience? Is it most effective to introduce the key concept first, or do you let students struggle with the problem through the case story and discussion before introducing the key concept?
I love that question. So we have actually played around with it a few times. I think what was worked best for us is front loading it. So we give them the information, even the prep before. So we tell them what the concept is. We tell them what it's based on, what the lessons are about. We even assign them what roles they're going to play if we know who's going to come to it. And then they could prep and come in. When we did it before, where we did it ad hoc, where we let the students struggle, they still had a really strong experience, but the key thing that everyone had given us feedback on is they wanted more prep time. If you really think about the whole idea, even though it's still idea of play, we're in the sandbox. We all still have a looking good conversation. We don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to look bad. We want to look like we know what we're doing. And so I think the consistent request we've received from most of our participants is that they wanted more time to prep and prepare. So we've been front loading more information.
Great. Yes, that's exactly right. And also, one person comment about debriefing. Debriefing is critical. Yes, and otherwise they miss the point. And that's exactly why we mentioned Dr. Rothwell, because he's the guru of succession planning. He's the guru of many different OD topics. So we didn't take the chance to debrief. We asked him to do it just because we wanted to make sure this debriefing part is crucial. We do have an example as well for that when we talked about playing the role of consultant, talking with the client. So the student played the role, they had a good conversation with the client, they think they ask all the questions on the list and they're confident. And now when Dr. Rothwell asks the students, do you have enough information to write the proposal? Can you write a one-page proposal and secure the deal? That's where students started thinking, okay, I know about the company, but I don't know exactly what the problem is or why we're hired and why we are being hired, what exact point and exact service the organization needs, and do we have the buy-in from the stakeholders? Do we have the buy-in from the CEO? Did we ask enough questions so that we can confirm where we are, what are the needs, and what organization, what kind of situation and the culture the organization has? So just getting into that situation where, okay, now you have to write the proposal, but do you have enough information? That creates emptiness and you want to ask more questions, and you start feeling like, okay, I don't have this information, but this can be asked, and I could get more aggressive and get more information so that my proposal fits the best and we get the client, and we don't make the client feel like we don't have everything that we need. So
If you think about also on that, a lot of times when students go through their programs, whether they're getting an MBA or any other kind of master's, the way they learn how to work with a client is by, working in an internship, or a lot of times they're shadowing somebody, or many times they become junior consultants where they get to do all the heavy lifting, but they don't actually get to work with the clients. We're really trying to get people to get that experience of being in front of a client and what that means. One of the feedbacks we have, I wanted to share this one, is from Kathleen. She is in the program right now. And she said it allows the application to unfold how to mature the academic concepts into a natural behavior with the repetitions. It allowed intuition to push the boundaries of our understanding in a collaborative manner. I love that. That was, I mean, it's about the collaboration. And this is where social learning becomes the key piece of this. We're learning from each other. We're learning in regards to what other people have done. We learn from each other's experiences. And as adults, we come to the table with a lot of knowledge and experiences, and we want to be able to tap into that.
mhm. Exactly. And one other piece is the playing the client. We have so much fun for the people who is playing client because they're in the open world. They can behave the way they want and they don't have to know anything. But also it gives them an experience how it feels when you are being asked with all these questions and how you explain those situations, how you answer those questions, and how the client would feel when you have a list of questions and you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you're having a conversation, a meaningful conversation, at the same time creating a report that you need. So
No,
playing.
no, really quick. Do you remember one of the times we actually had the students use avatars so they could put on a different face, like the face of a bunny or a face of a rabbit,
Yeah,
so they could play different names. It was interesting how there was a little bit of freedom in our regards to saying things, because that whole mask really helped some people. So I thought that was an interesting. We haven't done that again, but we did that one time. That was, and like I said, we try different things. We're exploring different things. The sandbox gives you a lot of flexibility to modify it that works for the context that you're actually in.
absolutely. Yes. And is still reading would be the best way to learn, but what we observe and the problem that we face in the classrooms, teaching the new generations and teaching the adults in the classroom, it's very difficult to focus on the book. It's difficult to focus on 3 hours long classes. So these are all kind of experimenting ideas, and we are not saying you have to use this model, but we're saying this worked, and this is the way we can move forward with many different ideas and still create the classroom fun and experience based. So, how you can implement these ideas in your organization? Maybe you are in an organization where you are teaching students, or maybe you're training professionals, and we implemented these ideas in many different spaces. For example, ATD, we already did twice, and the talent development professional absolutely loved the idea of playing the case story and designing their own talent development functions. And if you go to the ATD page, you will see a ATD function framework that Dr. Rothel, Dr. Allen developed in 2015 is revamped, and we did it again in 2025, and it doesn't look the same anymore. The puzzles, you can move around and you can play and design your own training and development instead of we saying what are the functions for your training and development department. So again, using the same ideas, same experiences, putting into different scopes and opportunities. So you can also use this to identify priority skill, design experiential challenges. This can be designed for any different challenge you can bring in. It can be designed in a different way. We are mostly focused on OD, talent development. Those are kind of like our expertise, but we see the opportunity to grow from here to many different other platforms. I'll show you a couple more. Um, and then facilitation, definitely integrating feedback and iteration and measuring the learning impact. That can be another beautiful finding from this research or implementation. Oh, Dr. Zavaleta added this at the last moment. So this is the talent development puzzle that we developed. And also on the left, you see the board. That's where we asked about 30, 35 talent professionals from Kansas to design their own department, how they feel about their department, what are the functions they're playing, depending on a case that we shared.
If I
And
can share a little bit real quick on this, the
yeah,
big part of this was we were giving it back to them in regards to their current organizational situation. And it's back to again, to the whole idea of the sandbox. We gave them a scenario, all right, consider what's happening in your learning departments and that you're needing to have build a business case as to why you need to expand or contract your learning departments. And as part of them doing that, they get to pull from each other what they understand is happening in their organization. And so that engagement with each other is really what allows them, one, to learn about what's happening in their talent development and how the functions actually work, but it also allows them to really explore other ways of looking at it.
thank you. That's an important input. Marcia, we still have some time, right? I just want to finish the slides. Okay, awesome, perfect. Thank you. We love to talk about this. We could talk about our projects for hours, but for the sake of time, let me just wrap it up really quick. So how we use that in the higher education, like I started the presentation with talking about AI technologies. And now we are pushing the boundary of this experiential learning and creating the role using AI and giving students a challenge to play the student of a professor, playing the student of the role of the students who has some challenges to learn and they can't read like all of us. They have some struggles and how we can create more accessible environment for the learners without going deeper into the experience of the learner. It's very difficult to understand why we need to make changes, why we can't use the link, why we need to create the syllabus using headlines appropriately so that the reader can read and the student can understand. So we created a challenge for them to really play the role of a professor and the students, and also added AI support to that. We have a trained AI chatbot who is going to answer the questions. For example, the student is facing challenges on the headline, but what you can really do as a professor, maybe you know, maybe you went through the policy, maybe you don't. At that point, the artificial intelligence comes in and you can ask the AI some questions and get the feedback right away instead of waiting for someone to debrief you throughout the whole process. So that can be another way of using the same process, using AI to support your learning. And also as a facilitator, you can come at the end and debrief the whole session and share the experience. So we do have our contact information in there. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us an email. If you're interested to learn more about this, feel free to send us an email. And we do have the same design for multiple different places we are using in different regions. So we'll be able to help you and we will be more than happy to design one for you. I really appreciate all the comments and feedback. It's really encouraging when we see such good feedback from the audience. With that, I'm going back to Marcia.
Thank you, Dr. Eileen and Dr. Farhan. Very interesting presentation. So, there is a question that arose, and that is, how do you see AI enhancing, not replacing, experiential learning and sandbox environments?
So I love the possibilities of what AI is going to look like. I think I'm looking at it from a couple of perspectives, from the VR idea and the AR idea. When we get to put on these goggles and actually be in a room with each other, and actually when we come into a room, we're going to actually be in a client, and we're actually playing these roles for real, as if we're actually with somebody in a bank, and we're actually talking with them about what's going on with the organization. I think AI has a lot of different applications. We've actually explored these things where you can actually use and create these video simulations so that, sometimes, people aren't always available to be synchronous. And so creating these asynchronous sandboxes would be really great. The challenge with technology is that it's always moving so quick, and trying to keep up with it is kind of challenging, but then also there's the cost part of it too.
Yes, the cost part definitely. I see Amanda in the audience. Good to see you, Amanda. She's a voice artist, and we talked about this VR settings a long time ago, and then Dr. Brendel from Penn State tried to create it, and we struggled so much because it takes a lot of investment to totally automate the process. Instead, we can use a simplified version of the experiential learning and play the role and debrief ourselves. Like the AI system that we just created, it also required some expert who knows how to do create the roles. Even though it's becoming more easier because those videos, you just have to put some comments and it comes up. You don't have to have really technical expertise to do that. But at the same time, it requires some investment. It requires some training, and to bypass that, the creating the role play and case-based scenario is a much better solution at this point of time.
Thank you. And one more question. You highlighted skills like leadership, agility, decision making, and resilience. Which of these strengths, to show the strongest immediate growth?
Hmm. That's interesting. Um, my first response is going right to resilience. We are in a time of change. We have to be able to adapt as quickly as possible. If you're not resilient as things are evolving, it's kind of like that whole idea of green and growing, brown and rotting. We have to be able to grow even when things are difficult and hard. So resilience to me is the one that's most important. What do you think, Dr. Sadiq?
I would go with leadership. Um, Leadership skills, I feel it's so human skill. It requires so much human energy. And also, leadership doesn't mean that we have to know the answer. It means facilitation, how you facilitate the new changing generation, all the generations working together at the same time. As a leader of your training development scenario, as a leader of your classes, how you make those changes and move fast forward. I feel leadership has a lot to do, and that's an important skill.
I'll add this too. One thing that's great about the sandbox is it does actually incorporate all three of those that you specifically spoke of. And it also allows you as the individual to select which one you think is most important, because you're going to highlight that. That's what you're going to represent. It's what you're going to deliver in regards to how you interact. And it allows you to go, all right, well, that didn't quite work as a leadership, because you'll get feedback from other people about how that actually was received.
Thank you. And there is a very last question. We can take one more question.
Sure.
Is in the sample simulation, feedback appears central. What makes feedback effective rather than intimidating in experiential settings?
So, as a facilitator, as the instructor in the course, you set the tone and the context of the feedback. But for me, feedback is the only way to know whether or not something's working or not. It's also the way I kind of approach even grading, right? I don't think a grade of an A, B, C, or D, or even a 90%, 75% is sufficient for learning at all. If I give you feedback on something, you got a 75%, I hope part of that feedback is that you get to redo it again and we get to explore. Feedback is a mirror to you to say, all right, here is what you did, and here is the outcome, and this is the experience that other people have. Dr. Sadiq?
I see feedback more into the appreciative way. I always encourage where somebody is doing most and best. At the same time, it is important to point out where the students and the practitioners is lacking. That's very important, but I mostly focus on the appreciative side of it. At the same time, when we talked about writing the proposal, providing a feedback, and if the student comes in and asks all the questions and you're observing them asking questions and they're missing some fundamental pieces, it is important to point those out. But at the same time, each individual is different and they have their own way of solving a problem. Appreciating that way often helps them to strengthen their ability where they're strong in. At the same time, understanding those small gaps is important.
Really quickly, the other piece too is that the feedback doesn't come from the instructor only. It comes from everyone.
Oh
And
yeah.
so that's what's nice about it. It's a 360 dimension on a structure like the sandbox.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for answering the questions.
This was
So,
fun. Thank you.
yeah, it was. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. On behalf of our organization and development program, as well as our workforce education and development programs at the Pennsylvania State University, we hope you have enjoyed today's session. If we did not answer your questions or address your question, please email us or reach out to the presenters directly. For the future webinar, we would like to hear from your feedback on our today's session. Please take the survey using the link in the chat box or by scanning the QR code as what you see now. On our next webinar is building future organization and development and change practitioners through the promotion of youth civic engagement skills and dispositions. This will be presented by Professor Todd L. Matthews on January 30th, 2026 at noon. Registrations for all our webinars is free, and it can be found on our website. You can also find us on our social media platforms such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we hope to see you soon. Have a good day and a good night to all of our guests from everywhere and every time zone. See you next year. Merry Christmas and
Happy
Happy New
holidays.
Year.
Yeah, all
Bye.
guys. Bye bye.